So I'm here now in Kingsdown, near Dover, because we've got an by-election for the District Council on the 27th of August. And the Restore Britain candidate in that by-election is Jez Hermer. Jez is a former Royal Marine Major, Bosnia to Afghanistan and a lot besides, MBE, and a local guy. He's been living in the... How long have you been living here? In the
54 odd years.
54 odd years.
I don't look it, do I, Henry?
Yeah, you do. Anyway, so you've already got the measure of this guy, right? So so Jez is also, he's been campaigning on behalf of saving beach huts, on stopping developments in the area. Absolutely passionate about the local villages in the ward. But Jez, my question to you is, why on earth you live in this lovely place and you've got this great life going for you, but now you've decided to stick your head above the parapet and maybe get it shot off? Why? What has motivated you to stand in this by-election?
Thanks, Henry. And it's a good question, and I have, over the past couple of weeks since we started campaigning, asked myself the same question, but I'm resolute, actually. The bottom line is, I'm a patriot. You've talked about my service. I'm also passionate about this local area, and I've been watching politics for the last couple of decades and where this country's heading, and I've been trying to find a political home, and I thought I'd found it in one of our rival parties, but actually with events over the last 18 months, 2 years, and some of the decisions of the leadership, I started calling my membership of those parties, or that party in particular, into question. And I was watching Rupert very closely and was really hoping that he'd set up a party, and I joined Restore in the early days when it was a think tank essentially, and I loved what I saw coming out of Restore. And when Rupert declared that he was forming a political party, I was on board immediately, because so much of what Rupert says as a politician, but also what the party stands for, totally resonates with me. I'm concerned about the future of our country. I'm concerned about the direction it's currently heading in all sorts of ways, economically, demographically, culturally. I think we've got an existential problem, and I want to do, or to be part of, an organisation that does something about it. So I joined the party at the very grassroots level, and to be frank, the last thing I thought I'd be doing this week would be campaigning to stand in a by-election. But the by-election came up in the ward that I live in, and Henry put out a call and said, look, who will stand? And I had a very long think about it and thought, well, how's it going to be? I'm a busy man, I run businesses, can I afford to do this? But the bottom line is, I'm a conviction individual, and eventually you've got to stop carping from the sidelines and put your money where your mouth is. So I said, yes, I'll stand, and my feet haven't touched the ground since.
No. Well, what is it? I mean, you mentioned Rupert, but I mean there are lots of other party leaders, and you specifically mentioned Rupert in as much as he was an inspiration for you in some respects. I'm putting words into your mouth there, but why did Rupert stand out amongst the others?
It's a good question. For me, Rupert stood out even back in the days of the European Parliament. He stood out because of his gravitas, because of his measured tone, and because of his political standpoint. And when he became an MP, and he was part of the Reform organisation, I found myself avidly watching him and looking for his input. He was prolific in Parliament, in the House, and the policies he was coming out with, the statements he was making, the letters he was writing. He's not a man you could just get behind, because he's a man of action. He's not just a man of words. He actually means what he says, and it's his courage and it's his bravery, allied to the fact that I think he looks like a statesman. I think he looks like a future Prime Minister, and then add to that the fact that the guy actually knows about running a business. He's been in politics for a while. I mean, there's very little about him that doesn't tick all my boxes, to be perfectly honest with you, and he's a man I can get right behind. And I'm pretty critical of politicians in general. I don't give them an easy ride, and Rupert isn't perfect, but he's the nearest thing to perfect I've seen in a politician in the last, let's say, 40 years.
And here you are, standing in the by-election for Guston, Kingsdown and St Margaret St Cliff, Dover District Council. What are your priorities? If you are elected, what are your priorities going to be?
Yeah, so the first thing is to get my feet under the desk or my backside on the seat. I'm sceptical about the way in which Dover District Council conducts some of its business, and in particular something close to my heart, the way in which planning policy is conducted. And I've led a local campaign called the SOS campaign to try and prevent overdevelopment of our beautiful villages, and with partial success, but not enough, because I believe that essentially within the local council and the planning department, the chips were weighed against us anyway, and I don't like that. So I'd like to get myself into the council so I can find out what's going on as an individual, possibly just a one Restore ward politician. I might have limited effect to start off with, but it's about a process. So I want to get in, find out what's going on. I want to scrutinise DDC and the way in which it conducts its business and the issues that really affect the villages here. These are lovely seaside villages, and yes, I'm very lucky to live here. There are also villages just inland that are rural communities. The rural communities are under attack because rural villages and farming are under attack anyway from the current government. So there's an issue there. Overdevelopment of villages. The village identity is very, very important, and we need homes for local people, not speculative developers coming in, exploiting these beautiful places, and then people buying second homes or moving people in from afar, or God forbid, if they can't sell the houses, moving in what I would call aliens and foreigners into our villages. It will change the character of our villages and change our culture. So, getting into DDC, sorting out planning, standing up for the villages, and other sort of kind of really local issues like excess speeding in the villages, trying to manage big trucks coming through our villages, putting in traffic calming. And that's an interesting one, because I've been attacked a little bit because Restore has a policy of getting rid of unnecessary 20-mile-per-hour speed limits, and people have attacked me for that. But I got very clear guidance from party headquarters. They said, look, we are retaining 20-mile-per-hour speed limits around schools and in vulnerable areas. And if you think your village is a vulnerable area, then you have complete free rein to campaign to maintain or expand 20-mile-per-hour speed limits, which tells me that we're not being yanked from the top, that this is a bottom-up party, and as a local politician I can have an influence on that. And in our villages we don't have pavements, so we have pedestrians and children and cyclists and horses and tractors and trucks and cars all on the same tarmac, and speeding is insane, and we need to do something about it. But beyond that, in those areas, around urban areas where 20-mile-per-hour speed limits for the sake of it, they need to go, and so I support that fully.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that I'm just going to pick up on something you talked about there, your villages and your village life. And of course, Restore Britain is very much about preserving and protecting, securing, defending our way of life, our heritage, our history, our culture, and our life, and actually improving it. It's difficult, this is my comment, not yours, but it's difficult to say that we're going to do that whilst at the same time allowing mass development, large movement of the population from, for example, London to buy second homes down in villages and so on, and effectively changing the entire character of the life that goes on in these villages, and often undermining agriculture, because the agricultural land then gets sold for development, and before you know it, the reason that the place was attractive in the first place disappears. So final question, Jez, is a lot of councillors, not just councillors, MPs and so on, I can think of a few who are quite high profile, what they do is they make a huge effort to get themselves elected, but then they disappear. People don't know where they are, they don't hear from them again until the next election comes around. And personally I find that very frustrating. What are you going to do in terms of maintaining your contact with the electorate in the ward if you are elected?
Yeah, thank you. It's really important to me. So firstly I want to say I'm not a career politician, Henry, and I don't have any real career aspirations. What I'm actually interested in is local politics and looking after the 10 villages in this particular ward. That's where my focus is, and I can't do that unless I'm in those villages on a sort of bi-weekly or weekly basis, in and amongst the villagers, maybe in the pubs, maybe holding a surgery or whatever. I've never seen that down in these villages, and I want to change that. I want to engage. I won't be promising to be able to fix everything, because that would be a fool's errand, but to listen, to hear people, and to start to build a picture of what is going wrong and what we can possibly do, so that hopefully in Dover District Council I can start to influence things. Like I say, I'm not a career politician. I wouldn't be doing this really, if I wasn't passionate about our villages. I'm not using it as a stepping stone to the next level, whatever that might be. Not my thing. I run businesses. I'm a busy man, but it's an old adage, isn't there? If you want something done, give it to the busiest person you can find. And I'm a busy person. I will get into this, and I will look after our villages as best I possibly
Are you
can.
going to hold surgeries where people can come?
Yeah, and I will hold surgeries. I'll find the right location in each village, and I'll hold surgeries, and I'll
But
propagate.
it's going to be a pub, isn't it?
It may well be a pub, and most of the pubs around here are actually quite friendly to me, so I've been good to them over the years. So yes, it might be a pub, or it might be a village hall, whatever. You know, it might be just at the back end of my van, you know, with a table and chairs. Doesn't matter. I can do all of that. So that's my plan. I've got no real political ambition beyond this. It's not what I'm about. I'm about getting stuff right here and holding Dover District Council and its officers to account.
Okay. It's worth saying that Jez actually is the only candidate on the right or centre right in this by-election who actually lives in the ward. The only other candidates out of, I think there's Conservative standing, Labour standing, I think the Liberal Democrats are standing, Greens are standing, I don't know whether the Heritage Party is standing.
No, not this time, I don't think.
So the only other candidate that lives actually in one of the villages that's going to be voting on the 27th of August is the Green candidate. So if you want the Green candidate, well, perhaps we're in different political spheres, vote Green. But if you want somebody who is actually going to try, just over my left shoulder here is the English Channel. And if you want somebody who is part of a party that is going to deal with the small boats, that is going to restore British policing, that is going to start building the confidence and the optimism and the prosperity and the security of the people of the British Isles, and villages like this in Kingsdown or St Margaret's just down the road, then Jez, if you're in the Guston, Kingsdown and St Margaret's at Cliff ward, then Jez is the man who is going to be the pointy end of the spear of doing precisely that. So Jez Hermer, Restore Britain, 27th of August 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.